Hello everyone. We will wait for 5 more minutes so that everyone else can join and then we'll start. I hope that's okay.
Yeah, yeah. Hello, everyone. We will be starting in just 2 more minutes. We're waiting for everyone to join. Thank you. Hello, everyone. Good morning. We are very excited to welcome you all to our session, Equity in Education, Cultivating Inclusive Academic Spaces. Before we start, I would like to take this opportunity to ask our speakers to introduce themselves. I would start with Professor Dabbulunaji.
Hi, I'm Debulina, and I identify as queer, both the noun and the adjective. And I teach in Delhi University, and yeah, I look forward to speaking with all of you. My pronouns, when I write, are they and them, but otherwise, I don't have any preferences for pronouns.
Rio, you were on mute. Sorry, Harsha.
Harshita, you're on mute.
Oh, Professor Rajendra, if you could introduce yourself.
Hello, everyone. Good to be on this conversation. First of kind for me, but I'm excited about it. I'm Rajendra Parikh. I teach at a college in Delhi University, and I'm queer and I'm Dalit. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Professor Rajoshri.
I'm not a professor, actually. I'm a PhD candidate in the University of Iowa, where I also teach. And I've taught in Interest College for Women for about 4 years before. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Arti ji. You on mute, Arti ji.
Oh, so sorry. Yeah, hi, I'm Aarti. A very good evening to all of you here. I'm Aarti Malhotra, and my pronouns are she and her. And I'm an artist, educator. You know, I teach art. I'm MFA in fine arts. And right now, I'm struggling. I'm fighting a case for my son, to whom I just lost last year. due to this homophobia at school and many other reasons, sexual harassment has happened and many things has happened. And I'm fighting for the guidelines for school to sensitize, the sensitization should be compulsory in school. So right now I'm advocating, all LGBTQI right. So
Thank you,
my son
Arti.
is RV Malhotra. Yeah. Thanks calling me here, and very happy to be a part of this team and to help other children, kids, and sensitize more people. It's always better to talk and share. Maybe I can contribute a little bit of my experience, my life experience to it.
Thank you, Arti. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. So before we start the session, one of the questions we received in our registration forms in the Google Forms was, how and why did we come up with this idea of organizing the session? So I hope we got one idea, one instance of why we need such events, such conversations to take place because of such blatant homophobia and transphobia. A lot of students are bullied, whether it's in school or in college, and that can really get to them. And the way we came up with this idea was I used to study in a Catholic college, and of course, you can't expect a lot. And there was a lot of transphobia and homophobia, but I wanted to do what I could. And I remember once a teacher was addressing everyone. I was in a girls college, and the teacher was like, "Girls do this, girls do that." So very politely one day I reached out to them and asked them if they could say students instead of girls, because maybe they are non-binary students there, people who do not identify as a girl or they don't identify as any gender. They're trans men there. And luckily for me, my teachers were very understanding, and they listened and they changed their language. They started saying students. For someone like me, it was a big change in a Catholic college in a small town. And that's how Theo, Vinayakan, and I started talking. And Theo came up with the idea that we need people here. We need to talk about it. And what better way to start with our amazing panel? So I wanted to ask if if Mr. Rajendra could start with his experience, what he has seen as a queer teacher.
Thank you. It's been a while. I've been teaching in Delhi University, and my observations and experiences are in fragments because I have lived my life in the closet and then semi-closeted, and due to varying factors. But at the same time, my observations of queerness around have been very, very strong. While I was a student at JNU, and then started teaching very young at a college in Delhi University. So the experiences are from two sides. One is from the distance, and one from from within, being part of the community in a certain sort of extent. Is that the spaces, like, since I've been in Delhi for almost 20 years, since I was just a 20-something young student at JNU, things have changed, drastically, and for better. But the pace of change and improvement for the existence of the queerness, the queer people, have been it's been very, very slow. I would like to say. Back in the day, about maybe 15 years ago, there were no avenues of discussion, of solidarities, or support groups. They were very few and far between, to my knowledge. Not really the experience, because I was not a part of such groups, but I saw from the distance as a curious, closeted young man in Delhi, coming from a small village in Rajasthan. Um, um, but as your question is about talking about academic spaces and my observations as a teacher in institutions like university and colleges, is that the visibility is very limited even today, and uh, how the marginalization of queerness is very rampant, um, or dismissal of their experiences or their existence is rampant even in the teaching fraternity. Um, you can say that certain liberal art uh, departments are little more sensitive or aware about the existence of queerness or queer people, whereas largely the other departments, with the sciences, commerce, and so on. And I'm speaking from my experiences, my interactions with friends and colleagues in colleges across the universities, that either they're pretty much ignorant, or they do not make effort to know about LGBT people, LGBT history, lives of people around them. So there's a toxic ignorance and that prevails in the minds of people, men, women, both, in academia, that which is very terrifying, which also terrifying because it will not allow students as well as the fellow teachers to come out to be themselves, move forward to help or create spaces which are positive for. Thank you. I mean, I'll speak more, but I would allow my friends and colleagues to speak.
Thank you so much. And also, this often happens when we are talking about the inclusion or other discrimination. There's a lot of intersectionality. And as being from a marginalized community when it comes to the queer community, and also when we talk about the BA community, we have seen that firsthand. Can you give us a little insight what it's like to be a queer Dalit professor in the academic space?
It's kind of it's a double-edged sort of existence, to be queer and Dalit at the same time, where you wonder what is more difficult to negotiate, or so as everyone's journey as a queer person is equally sort of challenging. But I think when you are dabbling with two forms of experiences which are based on discrimination or inequalities that are sustained for a long time in our society, is like the on one hand you have your commitment to the Dalit community, but at the same time you realize that even the best of the Dalit spaces where you have academic men and women, they happen to be homophobic or transphobic because of ignorance, or because their reluctance to know about queerness, or dismissing queerness as something abominable, like something which is so wrong that you don't want to talk about. So you always sort of torn between with your sort of commitment to your own people, if your brothers and sisters, and especially when you are semi-closeted or closeted. Whereas I also observed that the queer spaces especially the upper caste men and women and trans people, they also, suffer from ignorance regarding, the experience of Dalitness. I have observed they're pretty dismissive of Dalitness as experience of discrimination and their victimization. So it's you generally like trying to negotiate two worlds as a Dalit person who happen to be queer as well.
It is very difficult to just pretend and find a place for yourself in both the worlds. Thank you so much. Professor Debulina, we had talked about it before. A teacher has a certain power because, of course, they are a teacher. But being a queer teacher, where does it put you in the power dynamics between the teachers and students? And how can you try to bring a more gender-neutral language in the college or university, especially as you are teaching in DU?
Thank you for that question and for organizing this panel. I think it's wonderful to hear my friends speak, and even though we speak personally all the time, just hearing them speak on a queer panel, I think makes one listens very differently. Anyway, so I think I'm an ad hoc teacher, firstly. I'm not a permanent teacher. I've been an ad hoc teacher for 9 years now. And so outing myself as queer had its own dangers. I'm pretty out now. So just like Raj explained his journey, I think it's important for all of us to just chart out our journeys, because I'm also from small town and my parents didn't speak English. I'm the first generation learner from my entire family. And when I first came to DU, the word queer didn't exist. It was same-sex love. And I first came to same-sex love. I first started with same-sex love, and I studied in a college in DU, which I experienced as terribly homophobic. But I came a full circle when I went back to teach there. I think around 9 years after graduating from there, my first job in DU as an ad hoc colleague was, in that college. And by that time, the word queer was in India, and it had arrived, and I was 30 years old. And for me, it was no longer about same-sex love, because for me, I experienced the way that I approached the word queerness, which is perhaps being a little different from the norm or the common sense that had started to set in sort of same-sex love. So I've actually witnessed 20 years of living in Delhi, being queer, different stages of being queer. And so that's my journey. And now as a queer teacher, I've taught 2 courses of interrogating queerness. I've seen queerness become a part of the syllabus. And I have to say, it surprises me every time. I think because, for me, identity and my research identity and my sexual identity have been different. They've not been the same. So when I started to use my own personal experiences to connect with students in class or to try and explain something difficult, I really found it surprisingly difficult. So that was my experience. And I have to say that the whole point of coming today and speaking to a younger generation and older generation is also that you expect your teachers to know your pronouns, but I'm addressed as ma'am universally. Students don't ask me my pronouns. So I think that, despite knowing that I'm queer, so I'm universally addressed as ma'am, and I don't mind. I actually quite like, even though Rajoshi shirked professor, I actually quite like professor, not because I'll ever be professor, given how the recruitments are, but just it's a gender neutral term, and doctor is gender neutral term. So I like these words that students use to address me instead of ma'am, which again puts me back into the gender I was assigned at birth. So I feel like that, but I also have a responsibility because I understand as a gender non-conforming person in a college or a university, just being different, just existing visually, even before you enter the classroom and start talking about ideas, is different because I didn't really have that. And I know that queer students sometimes they're just looking for a little bit of mentoring or a little bit of handholding. And I do realize that I have that responsibility. And that is how I started coming into discussions of queerness, because otherwise my research identity has never been queerness. So, and then these two started coalescing, and I started sort of owning it more and more with a sense of responsibility, with a sense of ethics, and with the sense that time is passing. I'm getting older. There's an entirely new generation of students every year. We meet a constant population of 18 to 21 every year as we get old. We get older, but there are young people who come and they are different, they are edgy, they're smart. It's overwhelming also to be a teacher. It's overwhelming to also to know that there is an expectation that 80 people might have 80 different pronouns, and I sometimes can't remember names. So I feel like I also yeah, seriously. But so I mean, I feel like I didn't want to come into this panel from a position of authority only. While I understand my responsibility, I also want to say that um, even queer people in power, even with the privilege and an acknowledgement of privilege, have their own sorts of own sets of vulnerability. So yeah, that's been my journey.
Thank you so much. And I really like what Rio has shared, one of the coordinators and organizers. The binaries of ma'am and sir in the academic spaces also slowly needs to be dismantled. It is very true. It is putting all of us in the binaries that one can either only be a man or only be a woman. And we are trying, and it's very important, especially in academia, to understand this because that is the very core of academia, to understand and broaden our horizons. Rajoshi, to you next. You are a student and an educator. So how has your journey been on both the sides? How have the dynamics changed in India and abroad?
And that's a pretty big question. I'll try. And I also want to point out that both Rajendra and Debulina have PhDs, so they are they can like Debulina, so Debulina can even claim that. So I don't have that. I'm working towards that. Um, so last year when I came to know about RV specifically, I was immediately triggered because it reminded me like all the memories came flooding back because I grew up in Kolkata. Much of my higher education was also in Kolkata. And every day I would go to the school from the moment I would enter the bus uh, to the moment the bus left me. I was bullied. Like the names that RV was called, I was called those names. Uh, and it was fascinating to me how this is still happening, how the language is very similar. And I think like my mother didn't know that I was being bullied. I think I would say that, maybe RV was lucky to have someone like RTG as a mother who was, standing up for him. My mother did stand up for me in other ways, the ways that she could. But only like I think last year I asked my mother, "Do you know that I was being bullied?" And she said I had no clue. Um, so I don't know that this so like because there is so much of things that go around, like there is so much same-sex marriage talk that is happening in the country. We feel like we have come at a time when things are okay, but things are not okay. And this is not about one person, or for that matter, it's not even about like a child. This happens to people across ages. It happens for different reasons. Many of you who are here would know about Rohit Vemula, who died by suicide in 2015, University of Hyderabad. So these are public institutions. Delhi Public School, again, public institutions, right? So, and I don't know how it works in private universities or colleges because I don't have any experience of, being in those spaces, to be honest. But I think the message that people like RV, Rohit, or even Dr. Payal have got is that they don't belong in a particular space, right? So it's about power. The bully wants to feel the power. The bully may also have been bullied. So they can also have, maybe they are going through something also. But it's all about power. And when I got the email from Rio and also Debulina, and thank you for that opportunity. Uh, a lot was happening, is happening here in the US. The affirmative action, race conscious affirmative action has gone away. Uh, like it's a split second. Although the struggle to take it away was on for a long time, there are legislations now coming up against drag. Uh, there is already legislation against giving hormones to trans children, and the parents will be like criminalized if they do. So things are not great in the US. There was also that the other judgment against abortion and reproductive justice, I think last year. So I think we need to think about power more holistically and think about something that can be shared and need to be shared, which I think we don't share. Like, just if you think about Dr. Ambedkar's words, for instance, educate, agitate, organize, right? Because education is power. So some people don't want you to be educated, and because I'm talking about education, because today we are talking about education here in this panel. So, and that is why they don't want you in that space. You are different. They want you to make you feel believe that you don't belong here. And I also feel like the word inclusion also has its hierarchy, right? Like, you are asking someone to include you. Like, we are appealing because somebody already has been included. Like, just think about why we have reservation in the country. Ambedkar didn't want reservation. He wanted separate electorates, right? But he was given reservation because that was a compromise. Gandhi, as we know, like, did his fast. The Pune Pact happened. And I feel now, of course, it's good that we have that, because that gives us, I think, the opportunities to claim or to demand horizontal representation, reservation, sorry, for trans people. And there is a movement going on right now. It's been limited, but it's going on. People like Grace Banu have been leading it. And I think once that happens, once we have more trans people as educators, as students, I think we will see more change. And why I say this, because I think once, I think if I'm not misquoting, this must be Vikramaditya Sahai, my friend, who once told, I think it was a panel, similar panel perhaps, that, more than homophobia, it's actually transphobia, which results in homophobia. Because I'm not saying it's always the boys who do this. It could be any gender, but usually, as in a school, particularly because in a school where I was, it was mostly the boys who would do this. So the names they would call me would be names which somehow would sort of try to make my gender unclear to them, right? Which was not a problem per se, right? There's nothing wrong in being, especially, what is wrong in being called a chakka? But nobody tells us that then.
Exactly.
Nobody tells us that then, right? And they feel that it's wrong. They want you to, feel bad, right? So that's transphobia for you, in a way, because you are seen as trans even before about whether your gender, whether it's your sexuality, so on and so forth. And luckily, there are so many people who are already working on this. Like I was interviewing Shumi Das, who runs this organization, Moitri Shangdev Society in Kuch Bihar. And she was saying how she also runs a Gurukul, where she actually tutors, she and some other people tutor children of laborers. So this started during the COVID pandemic. And how she hopes that when these children go out into the world, they can also advocate for trans rights, you know. Um, and then there are others, of course, like Shintu Bagui, who has an organization in Shaurafuli, just outside Kolkata. She did a gender mela in Jadavpur University last year, and there were a lot of teachers, students, educators. But these are all, like these are all like small steps. We also need to make sure these are permanent. So why don't we have counselors, like not just one counselor, but more than that? Like my previous college did have a counselor, and we do know that when CBSE came out with guidelines in 20, I think 15, they instructed CBSE schools to have to lot of sort of stop ragging, have anti-bullying committees, and I don't know if schools have that. And I also feel schools need counselors, because first of all, counseling is, I think, should be available to everyone, and it's very expensive to access that outside. And like I said, these are small steps. They don't necessarily mean that just that would solve the problem. But what I'm trying to say is that there have been these measures which have come up from like higher authorities, whether also University Grants Commission. We had the Vishaka guidelines, and I think we have people here from Ramjas College. Ramjas College was perhaps one of the first colleges to actually have gender neutral anti-harassment, anti-sexual harassment boards, which now is called the Internal Complaints Committee, right? Uh, and yet, even though colleges in particular are sort of forced to have these committees, I really wonder how many colleges have conversations on consent. How many colleges do workshops just telling, कि ये नहीं हो सकता आपके साथ, and that we are here to believe you, that we will take it forward. Rather, there is always an attempt to hush things up. Um, in one of my previous colleges, again as an ad hoc, I have tried to do workshops, but I've always been told that no, talks to ho rahe hain. So it's easier to do talks through departments, but it's so difficult for the committee to actually reach out and say, this is what the committee looks like. Please come to us if you face sexual harassment at your workplace, right? Because we also have to think of students as workers, and not just teachers and administrators. And I think it's a like we and gender neutrality is still not a thing. Like in if I'm not mistaken, although Posh has been interpreted as gender neutral in a more recent judgment in Calcutta High Court, uh, but it's still not very clear. So once we have gender neutral, I think sexual harassment committees in colleges, and maybe even we need that in schools. I think we also need to make sure these are just not tokens right there, that these are actually people who believe in justice, who believe in sharing, because otherwise we will keep asking to be included, and we'll
Yes.
keep rely on the authorities to include us. And for one day, someone will come and say, "Oh, we don't need the laws anymore. We got inclusion," and then it's done. So I'm not saying to please accept us in schools or colleges or accept anybody. No, I'm saying respect each and every one, and you better respect me, because if I'm an educator here, who is out there sort of teaching, whether interrogating queerness, which by the way I think Raj and some of his colleagues actually drafted, if I'm not mistaken, the course on queerness. uh, so you better respect me for the work that I do, for the person I have. And of course, if I'm not an asshole, then yeah, then don't respect me, right? But I would not say please accept me or please include me. Unfortunately, yes, when it comes to the government, when it comes to the school authorities, we have to say that, because those are the people in positions of power, the principals, the boards, whether it's the education minister, and I don't know who is the minister right now. But I would say that a lot has happened in terms of giving guidelines, giving, having changes. But we need to see that these are effective through other means like horizontal reservation, by people, like bringing in people who can do that work, and not just by having one workshop in a year. That doesn't really help, So I'll stop here. Thank you.
Thank you so much. You raised a lot of wonderful points, and I would just like to ask one more question before I move on. You talked about power and belongingness, and one of the most important things is that we belong somewhere, and the people who have power, they can make a lot of difference if someone is part or is included. So, and also Professor Debelina has also mentioned and raised the question of power. So is there something the people who have that privilege, first of all, how do certain different types of powers play a role in the entire system of belongingness? A principal, a teacher, and also students. There's also hierarchy among the students. And second question is that how do we use that privilege? Like we have certain people have that privilege, but can we dismantle this? And because it is a systemic thing, whether it's bullying or excluding a certain minority. Thank you.
Okay, Debulina, okay, I'll maybe go first.
You can go first.
So I think, first of all, we need to think about bullying that does not happen to students, right? And I think Debulina and Raj both gestures towards that. It can happen to anyone. It can happen to the teacher also. The teacher can also be bullied by students, right? And it particularly, I think, happens to teachers from marginalized backgrounds and identities. They are constantly bullied. They are made to question themselves. Merit, for instance, is a construct that we keep thinking about. So, so power is something that travels, right? And you want it. But like I said, a lot of people don't want to share it or even give it up, right? Or but then I think it's also not so much about it is not so much about how should I like phrase it, about using power as so much about allowing the space for it to exist, for others to maybe even like take it away from you. We have to just think about it as something that we are not necessarily destined to have. What is about power that we must always aspire to it? Why can't it be something that is held, let's say, by a community, right? Even if you think about our country's like own history, like words like tolerance, for instance, we try to celebrate it, but even in that word tolerance, we assume that someone will have to be tolerant, and usually the assumption is that upper caste Hindus, or like, yeah, any majority sort of community needs to be tolerant to the minorities, right? So it's not necessarily a great word, to be honest. Like, and if you, I mean, of course, Nehru, our first prime minister, did celebrate that word. We would find tolerance also in our religious texts, but we are a democracy. So every person has one vote, right? So if we have one vote, then we don't need to tolerate. We need to respect. We need to respect each other, and let people just exist and do their stuff, right? Because that doesn't, because if someone is not forcing you to do anything, why do you have to force your belief systems on them? So don't tell me what I can wear or how I should dress up. Why did it matter for some students in my school or in RV's school that we were somehow not fitting in, right? uh, and I think that shouldn't matter. And maybe it comes from even your home, right? Because often parents might also sustain some kind of toxic environment in their house, so they see their parents having that relationship and they want to replicate it, because when you're that young, maybe you aren't even understanding what you're doing, right? I know it's like a vague answer, but yeah, that's all I could think of.
Thank
Okay,
you.
so I have perhaps a little different approach to this answer because I've been in a classroom and I've felt like not seen. And when I go back to the classroom myself as a teacher, I know I'm not perfect. I have my moments. In fact, when people who have not had power come to power, the way that they wear that power is not as secure as people who have had power for generations, who know how to deal with power. So power is not the same word for everybody. It's not like a necklace that you pass from one person to the other and everybody, it looks great on everybody, right? So our relationships to power are different and our ways to become empowered are also different. And there are not just class or caste privileges, of course, those are things that we talk about, but there are also other privileges. For example, I mean, I just feel like that, one of the things that worked really well for me in terms of my own relationship with the family is I was an only child. And, it means having more responsibility as a grown up, but it also meant that my parents, after a point, had only one child, and emotionally, I had a lot of privilege. And those are also privileges that we don't acknowledge, right? Our own relationships with our families can make us feel more secure or insecure in terms of doing politics. It doesn't make it easy, but those forms of privilege also need to be acknowledged. Um, what makes us feel secure, like, or even other people, for example, who are not out because they come from really big families and they can't talk, they can't be on a queer panel like this because they have family histories to protect. Um, so these are all actually different sort of little hinges or little sort of pegs that we can move around when we talk about power. Um, I feel like I can only talk about my own sort of coming to power or feeling empowered. I think for me, doing my academics was a big part of feeling empowered. Like um, doing doing work, doing hard work, showing up, having a consistent way of doing work was a big part of my empowerment. And a lot of the politics that I do comes from the feeling that I wish to be for others what I did not have. And it also comes from a place of compassion. So that's where my compassion also comes from. I feel I don't come to it from a place of being a savior. I don't want to save anybody. Nobody needs saving. But sometimes I feel like I wish to be the queer teacher that I did not have when I was in college. But I know that from being in a classroom, from having my moments, I'm not necessarily a model teacher, but I do take anonymous feedback every year. I try to be better and I do listen. I especially listen to things I don't understand and I remember them and I think about it later. And yeah, that would be sort of my orientation towards power.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
Yeah, about power and privilege, I'll say, I'll speak from the, position of, position as an educator, as a teacher, is something that Devolina and Rajesh, you already referred to, how the curriculum of the college university curriculum, how it should be made inclusive. So, 5-6 years back when the university was, revising the syllabus, and we as a small group of teachers, queer, non-queer, men and women, and queer people, decided that it was time that we created courses, on caste as well as sexuality. There was kind of conservative backlash against it, and the regular backlash ये क्या है, queer तो पहले ही होते थे, उसके लिए कोर्स ऑफर करने की क्या जरूरत है, दलित है तो है, उनके लिए why do you need to offer a full-fledged course to students, and the general backlash would say it will create problem it will create Dalit versus non-Dalit, or queer, who is queer and who is not queer. But we were resilient about it, and we managed to form a course in queerness, which is an optional paper in the last couple of years in English literature curriculum. And even now we feel kind of conservative backlash that it will be removed, or the idea that in the within that the whole majoritarian sort of view that how many people will study it.
Yeah.
But my position would be that even if 5 students want to study it, we need to make it available to those 5 students, whether they're queer or non-queer. Let's try and make the course available, because otherwise you'll end up reading literature of straight people, able-bodied people, more or less at the end of the day. So I think that is in a position of power that I have, and and how you have to be resilient about it. Another thing is something that the power that you do not know that existed is that Debulina mentioned that how, as a queer person or as a teacher, you can help students. I haven't really been sort of out there as a queer person, but it is very heartening when students, write to you, or when they're graduating, that you were someone that helped them negotiate their journey of queerness in college, or you help them. I don't know how, but they write to us and they say that they help them. Thank you for being there, just being there. So you never know, like, who you can inspire just when you have been yourself. I think that's a kind of a invisible power that you hold.
Yeah.
Thank you, Doctor. Thank you so much for that. Aarti, I know this is a very difficult conversation, and it has been a very difficult conversation. You lost your son to homophobia, to this transphobia, and you have been talking about it. You have been fighting for it. And you have not only been exploring this case, you have been exploring queerness and queer phobia. And if you could share your journey, it would be we are very grateful for that.
Yeah, Harshita, thanks for giving me this opportunity to speak and let everybody know what, from parent side, from child side, from everybody's side, like I can share my experiences. And I really feel very sad when I listen about like every queer child, even the not queer, even the person whose color is dark, who is a fat, thin, short-heighted, they only looking after the chance for bully others, and they don't know how long that impact will stay in the mind. Even when they got married, even they don't marry, they're working in the colleges, offices, they're studying, they're going for higher studies. That long impact of mental health, that trauma don't go away so easily. And people thinking it's so easy to say, but how others are taking, everybody need to check before say anything to anybody. That is what I have learned in this journey. Like I talk to so many kids, pure kids, other kids, even females, even many I had talked about the same thing, like word hurt more than anything. You don't need any other tool to hurt anybody or kill anybody. कहते हैं ना, शब्द से बड़ा तलवार और शब्द से प्यारा फूल कोई है नहीं. आज हम जो बातें कर रहे हैं, they are only words, they are only which we can share and care and talk, and then we can move our mind drive into whatever the way we want it to go in our life. तो ये शब्द ही हैं, ये words ही हैं which can drive our life journey to don't know which positive area and direction. So that is why we are talking and sharing and discussing. So RV was a very beautiful, handsome bacha, very creative. He used to wear nail paint. अभी भी उसके अलमारी में सारे nail paints I have kept. मैं क्या करती हूँ, कुछ अलमारी खोल के जस्ट देखती हूँ, विजुअलाइज करती हूँ he's there, कैसे वो होता, और हम अभी तो पूरा कबर्ड फुल भर चुका होता, full of everything. So how others have killed the world of mother, the positivity the child was carrying within himself. I know it only. because I'm living this and I'm missing this every day. I'm missing that moment where we were, uh, enjoying together, putting nail paint together, manicure सिखा रही थी अभी तो मैं उसको, like there are many moments. If somebody sit with me, the whole day will be, very less to share about those memories. But मैं एक चीज सबको बोलना चाहती हूँ यहाँ पर प्रेजेंट, और जो भी बाद में भी सुनेंगे इसको, जो इस वीडियो को देखेंगे, हमेशा अपने वर्ड्स को चूज करना है, चाहे वो एल्डर है, छोटा है, बड़ा है, पेरेंट्स हैं, वट एवर, टीचर है, अब क्योर टीचर्स है, जो भी है, चूज योर वर्ड्स. अगर बुरा नहीं, अच्छा नहीं बोल सकते तो प्लीज डोंट से बैड. एटलीस्ट किसी को दुख देने का हक नहीं है, और वो दुख आपको नहीं पता है वो किस बैकग्राउंड से आ रहा है. डू यू नो, हर कोई शेयर नहीं करता है अपनी लाइफ की हिस्ट्री एंड स्टोरी. आई एम कैपेबल टू टॉक, मे बी ऐसी बहुत माएँ होंगी जो भी सुन रही होंगी, बहुत फादर्स होंगे, बहुत एडुकेटर्स होंगे, बहुत बच्चे ऐसे होंगे जिनके दिलों में अभी भी वो दुख, वो दर्द, दे कैरी इट ऑन एवरी डे, एंड हाउ द वे दे आर कैरिंग देयर लाइफ, दे ओनली कैन टेल यू. बट आप एक ऑलरेडी परेशान को अपने शब्दों से और मार देते हो, तो उसके पास जीने की होप खत्म हो जाती है. इफ समबडी इज शेयरिंग विद यू, सबसे पहली बात, इन स्कूल कॉलेजेस होता क्या है, इफ समबडी कम टू यू एंड वो सोचता है कि ही और शी इज कंफर्टेबल टू कम आउट टू यू, आप क्या करते हो, यू टेक बेनिफिट आउट ऑफ इट. आपको एक गॉसिपिंग का एक टॉपिक मिल जाता है, सो यू ड्राइव दैट बच्चा एंड दैट कॉन्फिडेंस इनटू योर बुली थिंग. आपके फन का एक टॉपिक मिल जाता है आपको, एंड यू फील वेरी गुड मेकिंग फन आउट ऑफ दीज टॉक्स. आप अपने आप को बहुत प्राउड फील करते हो ये ग्रुप बना के ये फन करने का. एक्चुअली वीक वही लोग होते हैं जो दूसरे का फन करते हैं. The person is not weaker or not less those who are sharing, because the person is clear from heart and mind. That is why they are coming out to you, they are coming and sharing to you. अगर आपके पास कोई आता है, शेयर करता है, प्लीज अगर उसको आप अपने तक रखें, दैट इज वेरी मच इम्पॉर्टेंट. उसकी प्राइवेसी, उसके कॉन्फिडेंस को, उसके प्यार को जीते, ना कि उसका मजाक उड़ाएं और दूसरों को मजाक का और गॉसिपिंग का चर्चा बना करके छोड़ दे. सबसे मस्ट था आरवी के केस में, और हम बच्चों को लगता है कि सारी दुनिया ना बहुत अच्छी है, अच्छों को लगता है कि वो अपनी नजरों को ना उसी हिसाब से देखते हैं. दे लुक ओनली पॉजिटिविटी इन अदर पीपल, so they share their heart. So to whom we are sharing, that should be chosen wisely. किससे शेयर करना है, किससे बात करना है. आरवी के केस में यही हुआ, उसने अपने एक दोस्त को बहुत कॉन्फिडेंशियली थोड़ी सी बातें शेयर की रही, उसी लड़के ने उसको र्यूमर्स फैला दिए दैट ही इज अ ट्रांसजेंडर, ही इज अ छक्का. तो पूरा स्कूल वाज अबाउट आफ्टर हिज छोटा सा प्यारी सी जान के पीछे सारे पड़ गए. देन दे टुक हिम टू, उनका इतना हिम्मत हो गया, देन सेक्सुअल असॉल्ट तक चीजें आई, किसी ने उसको स्ट्रिप किया, किसी ने वॉशरूम, लाइक बहुत कुछ. देयर आर मोर थिंग्स विच आई हैव ऑलरेडी टॉक. सो जो आरवी का केस दे नो, तो मैंने बहुत बार ये बताया हुआ है व्हाट ऑल ही हैज गॉन थ्रू. यू कैन गो इनटू माय पेज एंड सर्च इट, आरती मल्होत्रा 82, that was made only by RV. So now it's his mother is carrying this campaign. सो बुलिंग आपको कहाँ से कहाँ तक ले जाती है. वो बुली की जो हिम्मत होती है वो सेक्सुअल हरासमेंट तक आ जाती है. when management, when other people are not helping, तो होता क्या है, आप एक देखने वाले भी उतने ही बराबर गुनहगार होते हैं. who are there जो इनिशिएटिव लेते हैं, very rare those who take initiative, genuine initiative. पर कोई डरता है, अरे वो तो ग्रुप से ऑलरेडी एक्सक्लूडेड है ना, उसको तो वैसे ही रहने दो, बेटर है. हम अगर उसका साथ देंगे तो हम भी सबको क्योर के लाएंगे, हमें भी सब डाउट करेंगे. आर वी गे, इज शी लेस्बियन, इज शी बाय, इज शी सिटिंग विद देम, व्हाट इज दिस. सो वी आर नॉट अ लीडर, एक्चुअली वी आर नॉट अ गुड लीडर. लीडरशिप क्या होता है, टू टेक अ स्टैंड विद पॉजिटिविटी, to help others, be empathetic, be kind. अगर तुम उसकी भावनाओं को, उसके इमोशंस को फील नहीं कर सकते तो हर्ट मत करो. एटलीस्ट इतना रिक्वेस्ट जो भी सुन रहा है उससे ये है कि डोंट ट्राई टू हर्ट अदर्स. रिस्पेक्ट नहीं कर सकते तो डिसरिस्पेक्ट भी मत कीजिए. आरवी के केस में यही चीजें सारी नहीं सिखाई गई, या घर में हम पेरेंट्स बच्चों से इस बारे में बात ही नहीं करते. हम डरते हैं, सेक्स वर्ड से ही डरते हैं, सेक्स एजुकेशन ही नहीं देते. We talk only about male female, क्लास 8 में पढ़ाया जाता है, right? जब हम स्कूल में पढ़ते हैं तो क्या, but schools are teaching only, they are not talking, they feel shame, they feel कि I told to this to my principal, ma'am, please teach about this to kids so that they can start respecting, they should start accepting that other genders are also existing, हैं ये चीजें हैं. She said, what are you talking about, Aarti? What are we educating others? So the mindset should change from the school within itself now. It's high time. Million kids are still suffering, और school is the basic, like यहीं से ही गड़बड़. आज जितने भी यहाँ listener हैं या जितने भी speaker हैं, सच में बताइएगा ये school से ही start होता है कि नहीं? Then it moved to college. Then it moved to universities.
It happened, I mean, you know, when I read about Arvi's news in the newspaper, I had the same exact reaction that Rajorshi did. I was called Chakka Dada in college for a very long time. And मुझे सही में आज भी ये दिल्ली के फरीदाबाद में हो रहा है. इसका मतलब ये कितना यूनिवर्सल है और हमें कितना जरूरत है इसके बारे में बात करने की.
आपको पता है पुलिस ने मुझे क्या बोला व्हेन आई वेंट टू पुलिस स्टेशन, एंड उसके बाद जब मेरा जर्नी शुरू हुआ, कोर्ट एंड पुलिस ये सब चालू हो गया, आई वाज नोइंग कि इस केस को इतना कोई सपोर्ट करने नहीं वाला है, क्योंकि अदर साइड और यू नो अदर स्कूल है, इतनी बड़ी मैनेजमेंट है, आई एम टॉकिंग अगेंस्ट देम, एंड ये बच्चा खुद ही लिख गया, हु एम आई टू से, बच्चा हैज रिटन हिज सेल्फ, व्हाई, हु इज द किलर, हु हैज किल्ड हिम, ही हैज रिटन इट ऑन हिज ओन, आई एम नो वन टू से एनीथिंग. He is clearly mentioned in his last note. Then what happened in the police? उनको भी बहुत sensitization की जरूरत है. They said, मैडम छक्का ही तो बोला है, हिजड़ा ही तो बोला है. That was his words. कहता है मैम उसके लिए मैं क्या करूँ, जेल में कर दूं अंदर? मन तो कर रहा था कि मैं उनको बोलूं, अगर उनसे मैं, वो तो आपसे ज्यादा अच्छे है सर, वो तो ज्यादा रिस्पेक्ट करते होंगे, आपको तो पहले रिस्पेक्ट करना, इस वर्ड का रिस्पेक्ट करना ही नहीं आ रहा है, तो मैं आपसे क्या ही बात करूं. So we talk about कि हम एक्टिविस्ट हैं, हम बहुत बड़े इन्फ्लुएंसर्स हैं, पर ग्राउंड लेवल पे आके कौन देख रहा है चीजें? Who is doing work? यूथ से मेरी एक्सपेक्टेशन बहुत ज्यादा है, क्योंकि मेरी जनरेशन जो मेरे ही लेवल के, जो मेरी एज इक्वल एज के हैं, उनको ही मुझे समझाना भी मुश्किल हो रहा है. मैं अपने ग्रुप, अपने फ्रेंड्स के साथ बात करती हूँ, whenever I talk to them, I say कि okay, this is all what has happened to my child. मुझे उनको, I have to teach them the difference between हिजड़ा, छक्का, gay and all. सबको ये पता है, everybody knows, okay, what is lesbian, they don't know, what is bisexual, sexual, don't know, they don't know about it. So first everything is start to educating about this to LGBTQI, start from this our home itself. हम अपने घर से ही शुरू कर ले. Why to depend upon education system and educators? First started from our home itself. If we kids are listening, if we parents are listening, at least we can go home and talk about LGBTQI community. And my son took that initiative. In my case, he only taught me, not my, I was into education. I taught in like almost 18 years in the school, but never ever my school talked about it. POXO, they did not talk about it. Child don't know कि POXO क्या होता है, protection of child offense, ये क्या है, किसी को नहीं पता. Nobody knows in school. CBSE has a guideline on bullying, किसी को नहीं पता है. Counselor school में कितने, like 5,000 kids, only 2 counselor they appoint. Teachers so they can appoint 500. Where is the need of, they don't know, recognize the need of this need of kids. Like अच्छा, अगर if 2 counselors are there, do you think so 5,000 kids में से if there are 500 kids needed the badly the mental health or other help which they really wanted to go to counselors are not available, we have to take an appointment, they are more expensive than outside, तो parents को outside जाना पड़ता है, and when they go outside they have to pay so much, already they are teaching their kids in branded schools, the other expenses added. And if school allow any child, special child, to get that kind of knowledge and education and that help regarding therapy or other sessions, what happen is whole school teaching staff tagging that child, पता है वो तो वैसा है, उसको तो ये प्रॉब्लम है, वो तेरे सेक्शन में आ गया इस साल, Is he shifted to your class? Now this year you are the teacher of the school. His mother is that, his father is that. Do you know his child behaves this? So what we educators are doing, we need to correct that. I myself witnesses that in many kids cases. I saw that this is happening in teaching uh, fraternity, whatever. I am not against any school, any kind of. We are just talking to how to we can improvise, how we can stop talking about, you know, to any kind of child. That is not his or her mistake. That is not their parent mistake. Single parent के child को कैसे treat किया जाता है? RV was a single parent child. Yes, from childhood, 16 year we have lived alone. So he was looking for help. Can't be the other teacher could be a father for him, father figure. कौन बना? Who has supported? But yes, for blaming everybody can come. Sexual assault is किसी ने, nobody has taught तो जो victim थे, those who did that, they were not knowing actually कि वो एक crime हो सकता है. Now juvenile justice board ने उनके ऊपर केस लगाया है, कोर्ट ने केस लगा दिया. There is a case going on, those juvenile case बन गया है. It is the case is under POCSO. So they were, maybe they know, maybe they don't know, but how have we educated about this to our kids? No, nobody. So school feel shame to talk about this POCSO. So victim don't know कि मुझे मेरे क्या rights हैं, and accuse those who are doing this offense, they don't know कि future में कितनी बड़ी problem में आ जाएंगे. And the thirdly, mental health. Nobody recognized, nobody supports these days. They say okay ये तो ड्रामा कर रहे हैं, नाटक कर, अभी तो ये ठीक बैठा था, अभी ये खराब हो गया. अच्छा, इतनी जल्दी तबीयत खराब होती है इसकी. That has I lived that. I have suffered that for my son. It was so difficult to make them understand. Yes, ma'am, he is not fine. I have to beg for the help. Like, ma'am, please, can you treat him like he is not fine? As a patient, I said that he got dyslexia. Can you understand? In grade 10th, we found he is dyslexic. How unfortunate mother
That's very tough. It's very tough.
How unfortunate mother I was. I was into same school, and school teacher did not recognize that, okay, he's not able to do maths, if he's not able to do numericals, if he's not able to do Hindi, he's doing some, mistakes. I was an art teacher, so I can easily guess in my subject, right? Suppose one child is not able to draw properly, I can guess, okay, he can do good in crafting, he cannot be, perfect in painting. Same way, mathematics teacher, other teachers, subject teacher, language teachers, can't they recognize if child is not able to do that, maybe there is some kind of issues. But yes, tagging could, anybody can give it easily. But the direction to the parent, but the suggestion to the parent, very rare talk about, and they don't give knowledge to the parent because their paperwork may increase. Dyslexic child or special child, if they are in college or schools, so teachers work might get increased, counselors work might get increases because they need to keep a record for that child. The child should be sitting, another room, then only they will give the paper. The proper counselor should be there for his exam. Are we last trigger was exam only. He did not get support there for his exam. So many things has happened. I got to know through the cameras only, school cameras. At the time of investigation, I saw the cameras, and then I saw how my child treated in the school. So that proof police has investigated, and then I saw, oh my God, how unsafe was my child.
Yes.
And the same premises I was there because rooms, blocks were there, so I can't, see it, like what is all happening. But when after RV I saw, so that is I'm talking to parents. Then email exchange is so important. When we exchange email, when you talk through verbally, nobody says that we had requested something, we told something. Only the exchange email are the proof in court now. Yes. Otherwise, if you trust to your subject teacher, to your other teacher, to your coordinators, they are denying that I have conveyed some more other thing. The only emails I have sent it, they say yes, this is she has conveyed. which are not it's not documented by email, they says no, it is not. So these 5 6 things are very very important. Talking about kids, about the POXO, the bullying rules, CBSE guidelines, then dyslexia, we should know and find out how our child is in study and education. If he or she is finding some, it is not about only school, in colleges also. If kids could not identify class 10th or 12th, they may identify in colleges also. If they are finding particular subject issue, so they might get dyslexia, some kind of percentage that we can find it later. So we can go ourselves, we parents can go ourselves, no need to wait for other people to tell you. So these 5 6 point, and mental health, we should check with the kids regularly, right? If and LGBTQI education and the other topics we should talk about at home. It can be any child from family, from relation. We tend to support, and because we don't know the background of the child, and then we say whatever we want to say. And yes, my child is a child of simple mother. If अगर ये वो I feel like when I'm fighting the case, अगर ये किसी मिनिस्टर के बच्चे का होता या किसी वेल नोन पर्सनालिटी के बच्चे का होता, तो आज क्या हो चुका होता सबका. And this mother is struggling just because she is a simple mother or teacher. She has no support.
Thank you so much, Aditi, for talking about this. As you mentioned, if you can't respect somebody, don't respect them. If you can't help, don't be someone who causes pain. And it's important to know about all the rules that they're already there and the policies. And I know this was very tough for you and a very vulnerable moment. Thank you so much for opening up with us. And now I will be opening up the platform for the audience to ask questions. There are a few questions in the chat box. I will read them out. Until then, if there's anybody else who wants to ask any question, they want to put forward another point, this is the time. This is the interactive part of the session. And you can also open your camera.
There's a question from Ravindra Bansia. Yeah, I think it's a very important question. It addresses me, Rajoshi, and Rajendra, and says that all humans need affirmation. Queers perhaps need more affirmation because of the existing environment, because they are a minority. Sometimes this need for affirmation can be exploited by people of the same community. Can someone shed a light on how to prevent or reduce or avoid exploitation? Absolutely. I think this is such an important question to ask. And honestly, the word that we've not used so far is the word safe space. And what does it mean to have safe space? What does it mean to create safe space? Because I think even people in the community don't necessarily start by wanting to exploit or be predatorial, because sometimes that's the thing that happens. Older queer people want to make space. They have not really been self-reflexive, or they have not resolved their own hurt. So then what happens is a younger queer person becomes a way of resolving their own psychic, I don't know. And it does become a predatorial space. In fact, I've spoken about this with my students in the queerness classroom. In David Baldwin's novel, Giovanni's Room, there are these various ways of exploitation. Firstly, I think if we look at it from a place of compassion, it is to start by acknowledging that nobody who has gone through an experience of discrimination wants to do it on someone else consciously. They probably are not doing it consciously, but it happens. I mean, one does. I know many young people who end up feeling disillusioned, exploited. I think it's really important to also, when you are looking up for role models, to see that they are also vulnerable. And that's why I wanted in this panel to have a conversation between older queer people, younger queer people, and I wanted to talk about my own vulnerabilities and other people who are older, their vulnerabilities, because powerful people are not necessarily empowered, and this is where I think sometimes the problem happens. They don't end up creating safe spaces. In fact, at some point, when you are disappointed, you end up feeling used, you end up feeling absolutely like not heard, you end up feeling like a pawn in other people's stories, and that's not how it should be. But I don't think necessarily that that older queer people or people of the community want to do that, right? They don't necessarily want to exploit, but it ends up becoming exploitative. It ends up becoming a very, very predatorial space when a younger queer person who's just had a heartbreak or had a breakup, they don't know where to turn, they turn to you. I think one of the things that older queer people can do is by talking of their own limitations. Hey, look, I'm not the best person to give advice, but from my experience, and actually handhold from a distance rather than try to rescue them from a situation. I think that never works. Trying to save people, trying to rescue people without resolving your own sort of some past history that you're playing through someone else who's younger. So firstly, I think if queer people need to be in spaces of counseling, they first need to resolve their own issues rather than come to it from a place of authority and say, oh, I know everything about your heartbreak, I've gone through the same heartbreak. No, you've not. You've gone through heartbreak 20 years back, and this is another person. It's not the same situation. So recognizing that difference, accepting and respecting difference, not just completely claiming and say, hey, you are queer, I was queer, we are the same. No.
Absolutely.
This is a different time and age. This person's heartbreak is different, and it's not the same situation.
I really like how you said it's not the same situation, and holding ourselves accountable, and also not having that savior complex. See, oh, I am older, I've seen more, so I can save you, because that can lead to exploitation. Exactly. Thank you. Dr. Rajendra and Rajoshi, if you want to talk on the same question.
Yeah, I think I pretty much agree with what Deborah has spoken, and how to you have to be wary, because like there's a generational gap between the older queer or the young the youth of today. It is very important to be helpful, be supportive, but at the same time there's a generational gap, and help them, but don't try to be expert, and also do not try to take control of their narrative. Do not gaslight them, or dismiss their grievances or their heartbreak. Or I mean, I have seen that as a younger me, when I tried to reach out to some people who I thought would be helpful, and then they were very dismissive, or like, it's just very romanticized. You're just we have been there and done that, so just move on and all that. So it's just very important, and also to keep a distance and do not take emotional advantage, or if they're confiding in you, you need to protect their privacy and help support them from a distance. There's a question on ways.
I just want to add something to what Raj said, and I feel like it's also younger people's responsibility not to take older people's labor for granted, to acknowledge labor. You don't have to be grateful. You don't have to be grateful for it, but you have to acknowledge labor. You cannot take some of the spaces that we have worked so hard to create and use queerness as a means of not being able to acknowledge where, because we are not your parents, we are not your friends, we are not your mentors, then what are we, right? Some of these models of mentorships have no name. And that's something that we struggle with, right? Make your expectations clear so that, we can also as older queer people, not feel like, we've been taken for a ride. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, there's a question. Should I just
Raju,
take it?
Uh,
Yeah,
if
Rajesh, you have
it's,
something.
if, yeah.
Yeah, I actually don't have anything new to add. I completely agree with what both Debulina and Raj said, and also just wanted to add that like even the queer community, for instance, like I think Debulina was uh, talking earlier about power, how people see power differently, right? It doesn't mean the same thing. So similarly, the community, we should be careful to say, like maybe not the community, but communities, because like there's might be nothing in common between two persons except the fact that they, let's say, both of them desire the same gender or something like. So they may not have a lot in common because of age, class, caste, religion, a lot of other things. So it's I would say that might be a misunderstanding to say that because someone is gay and this ABCD everybody is gay, they form part of the same community, or they would go through they would have some kind of solidarity. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work. And there are other issues. So for instance, even intimate partner violence, which is
yes,
something we
yes.
can talk about, but something that
We
needs
should
to
be talking
happen.
about that
Yeah,
sometime. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, that's it.
Rajesh, there was this one question asked initially. This is for you. Could you please share your opinion on the Washington bill allowing children to legally be taken from parents if parents don't consent to gender transition?
I have
It was,
actually not.
yeah.
Yeah, Harshita, thank you so much for the question. I have actually not read the bill, but I know that it's interesting how, and it comes at a time when like some parents will be criminalized if they do give hormones to their trans children. But on the other hand, there is this other bill which people are also talking about, where to give protection to children. I think it's important to see that and I think there was a similar question somewhere about homophobic parents, and to see that we find a way to sensitize police. Jessica Artiji was talking earlier about her experience of approaching the police, so that if there is a case when a child seeks protection, the police does not dismiss that child and say that you should stay with your parents, because your parents are the only guardians who can ensure your safety. And so far, I don't know, in India, for children, I don't think we have that infrastructure yet. And in fact, we have very few even spaces where adults, like queer adults and trans adults, Garima Grahe, for instance, is something that the
Yes.
government tried to create, but there has not been like funding.
Yeah.
So aaya hi nahi. So, and a lot of Garima Grahes are struggling right now, to be honest. So then we don't have this. So safety also, like what is safety? What is it? Who is it safe for and from? Is something that we need to think about. Like in US, for instance, when all these anti-trans legislations was coming out, I saw more protest. I saw more like posters, stickers. Educators in particular, they put these stickers. This is a safe space for trans people, or a safe space for LGBTQ. So those are great things. Those are, they give you confidence. But at the same time, I hope we go beyond that to actually find, let's say, a safe living condition for, space for someone whose parents might be, homophobic, or might be attacking them, or something.
Thank you so much. There's one
Yeah,
more question. Yes.
I was saying that
Uh,
I follow a little bit of what is happening in the US. The conservative sort of point of view, as well as the liberal.
Mhm.
I think the whole discourse is between should the government or the state decide whether the trans kid should choose to transition, or the parent. So it's there's no easy answer whether the parent is the sole sort of decider of a young queer trans persons, especially decisions, or the state. think I mean, that's the same, thing that when we talked about, the trans bill, and, who will decide, it's the government or a certain agency will decide your transness and what can you do with your body, or, how the path of your body or your life, or you yourself, or, and then here it is the parent being the important factor, but the sole factor or not.
Thank you, Dr. Rajendra. This stage is open for everyone to put forward their opinion. I can see a lot of people have typed questions and suggestions and their point of view in the chat box. If anybody wants to turn on their camera or their mic, they're more than welcome to do so that we can have an interactive session.
Yeah.
Hi, I would like to just add one point. So one of the participant has asked a question that if he can suggest some ways to remove sir, ma'am binaries from mailing, like when we mail people. So usually what I personally do is I either just write greetings of the day and then start the mail, or I just write their names, because name, they were given a name for a reason. So even if I write Dear Debulina, for example, that's okay. Or Dear Harshita, that's okay. So it's okay to just write their names, not put any Mr. or Miss or mixed in front of it, or not you sir or ma'am as well, which goes in college spaces as well, or school spaces as well. We can use teacher, as Devilina ji said, we can use professor as well. Also, there was one thing that Rajoshi was talking about, that we need to and Rajendra sir was also talking about, that we need to have curriculums, and we need to have more solid curriculums and courses in place. One of the things that happen around it, as we saw when the manual for trans students came in place, which was made by Ramki ji, Vikram was also there. And after that, we saw there was a massive backlash when NCRT released it. So due to that backlash, a lot of activists and a lot of people who were involved in making of that document, were constantly bullied and harassed on social media platforms. Especially Vikram was one of those people. Vikram even I guess lost their job because of it. Whenever we talk about such curriculums, it also comes in place who will make these curriculums, how will they be presented, and even when a big organization like NCRT tried to put it forward, there's always such backlash that comes in place. So just to break it down, how can we have those small steps at the moment while we are also working at the policy level change? So what do you think can be done at individually college level, school level, where we can uh, probably put a proposals to principals or put proposals to directors to have small workshops, and not one time workshops, but expansive 1 year long workshop, which turns into a curriculum, but there's no name for it also at the same time. So what do you think can be done in those regards? It's an open question to everyone.
What can I say about from my knowledge or observation is, I mean, the colleges, a school can have orientation programs at the beginning of each academic year or each semester, and which are done somehow in colleges, on orientation of gender sensitization, or sexual harassment, and its policies, or anti-ragging and all that. But still, they need to be more comprehensive and include LGBT, the queerness, talk about what is queer phobia, what is transphobia, what is biphobia, and all of that. And I believe that teachers also need these orientation program, related to caste as well as queerness, and they repeatedly needs to be told about what is okay and what is not okay. So this is something that I feel, and my students tell me, queer and non-queer students, how many of the teachers are so deaf and so ignorant, about queerness or existence of and non-binariness. So they see the world through a very, very conservative prism, and it's very disappointing to them. So I do believe that teachers need orientations. Even they can brag about we are professors and we are PhD and everything, but we don't need to know. But they do need to know, and they better need to prepare themselves.
I wanted to add, Rio, Rajendra sir said it so well and nice, because this is a wonderful idea. Here, what is happening after RV case, what I have learned is school is not, allowing others to take that kind of workshops. They allow only grade 11th or 12th kids. So my experience is, when I talk to kids and why I'm listening to from other kids, they say ki, they start understanding and they get to know from the age of like after 12, 13 year. It differs, like some understand at the age of 18, 17, 19. So there is a difference, right? Everybody's experiences. So but school says, like, if we teach this thing to parent, and parent will not allow us to speak, parent may say ki, in what direction you are taking our kids. एक phobia है कि हम उनको उस चीज को करने के लिए जबरदस्ती इन्फ्लुएंस कर रहे हैं. So we are not educating, we are driving them to that direction. We are that kind of educator. So they have a fear to accept that कि हम कहीं भी ये बात करें, and we take that sensitization sessions. So I know many NGOs, many groups, those who do sensitization in schools, they are coming forward with these issues, like schools are not allowing. In colleges, so I have heard, like, listening, and because this Ramjas also allow you guys. So if there are colleges in DU, there are kids, youth are taking initiatives. So that same way, school kids also, even the colleges kids, the youth should go to schools, take that responsibility, take that initiatives to go make your teams, go and say to principal, make them also understand, yes, this need to be talked in school, to the parents and to the teachers. If they are not allowing to talk to kids, at least teachers should be educated, the staff, principal, headmistress. But
also, I think, sorry, no, please continue. I think what I hear,
and government has not made any rules. Sorry, one person has said it in the questions, like, Aarti, what are you expecting? What kind of law, and then how your school should respond to it. So school, RV school has not holded a 2-minute silent prayer for that child. What more can I expect from them? They were offering money to this mother to shut down this case, to stop down this case. But I said, I requested only one thing. I said कि मैं photo भी भेज दूंगी. I'll send RB's photograph and flower from my side. You just hold a 2-minute silent prayer and do Shraddhanjali to that pure soul. They said, no, we can't. So what more can I expect? So for them, it's a regular basis. So if there will be a strict law on bullying and everything, and this LGBTQI sensitization, if there some kind of guidelines, rules are there to schools, then only they will do. Good touch, bad touch पढ़ाया जाने लग गया. पहले वो they were not talking about it, and then good touch is bad touch is for girls only, not for boys. They don't talk to boys about it. So there should be some kind of improvement, implementation should be there, and we youth can work only, and we elders, those who understand, can team up and do work and do more brainstorming, and then we can finalize, okay, yes, we can go ahead with this. Yeah, sorry, Bolena.
No, not at all. No, I was just thinking from hearing you earlier when you said that there are 2 counselors for 5,000 students. And this is something we also face, as teachers in public universities. Sometimes the teacher to student ratio is so high, and there are no clear definitions of what a teacher's work is, right? Like, we may sometimes go above and beyond our sort of professional duties in whatever capacity. But when there is such a skewed teacher and student ratio in the system, if you're talking of policy changes, how can we think of changing that? Like, even when sometimes if a teacher wants to be sensitive, how do we? I feel like that somewhere, and that's what I think, that we need to bridge this, the gap between the people, in power, sitting in positions of power, and students through this. Like, we don't imagine the mental health of people in, like, the police force, right? I mean, people who are exposed to crime all the time. Like, uh, we only think of mental health in terms of the youth. How can we change some of these dynamics? Like, I sometimes, when I hear about, I know some people in the police who actually, they're absolutely confused and they don't know what to do. They don't know what response. It always seems that we expect people in power to be right, but sensitization also has to come from sensitivity. We cannot expect the world from powerful people, and, as teachers, where we don't imagine them having mental health. We don't imagine them being able to err, to make mistakes. So I just feel like some of these sensitizations have to be with some common ground. I don't want to go looking for acceptance from people in power. I don't want to dilute queerness by saying that it has to be accessible, but it also has to be. I mean, I know that from being in a university with colleagues who are much older, some of them, the insensitivity comes from the fact that they don't understand, and not necessarily from, oh, it's so insensitive if, your child was not given a 2-minute silence. Like, how do we win over this person? I recently attended a talk by an activist, a queer activist from Jorhat, Rituparna Niyog, who has been talking about a different strategy of doing repair work. And this is the word they use, that how do we do repair work? The straight people have caused damage. Abhi unko theek karna padega. And one of the things that they said was not by networking, but by connecting. How do we connect with other people? Firstly, I feel like this is something I would like to know from other people. What are some of the strategies of connecting with people who are in power? How do we bridge that gap? Is it storytelling? Is it asking them their experiences of queerness? कि आपके स्कूल में कोई queer था क्या? आपने कभी किसी को like किया? या आपके साथ कभी bullying हुआ है कि नहीं? How can we connect with people?
I just want to say something here. I really like RTG's suggestion of actually doing workshops for principals and teachers. And I think it's already done, but it's not done clearly in a systematic manner as it should be. Because then I think the connection that Debulina is talking about, at least some attempt can be made. I'm not saying that it will be because I'm sure that even if you try to form that connection, some people will still be dismissive. I mean, I may not understand some religious customs or the fact that I feel like they are not rational, but I would still say fine, as long as you don't interfere with my space or what I believe in, you do it, you do your shit, or as long as you don't harm anyone. So let's try to make connections without maybe necessarily saying that they'll accept or anybody will sort of start believing in what I believe. Yeah.
एक छोटा सा एक्सपीरियंस शेयर कर रही हूँ. जस्ट ऐसे ही स्क्रॉल कर रही थी तो आई गॉट टू नो, आई सॉ वन गर्ल who started an app, and that app on bullying, and she got medal from Pradhan Mantri Modi ji. How did she went to, and that girl is 18 years only. How did she reach to that level? So we need to think on that way. If she can go, we can do such lot of things. We are educators, we have power, we have knowledge, we have resources, we have eyes, hands, everything. We have mind, we have everything to think, sense, so many blessings we have. But the way we are directing, the way we are using, we need to work as a team, and we need to be very open up to share and talk and discuss. G20 aa raha hai, come on, क्या बातें कर रहे हो? जहां चाहिए वो तो बात ही नहीं कर रहे. Who will track that attention to the government? We only are the change maker. We only are we cannot play only the victim card. I really don't want to be bechara mom. मुझे कोई नहीं सिंपैथी चाहिए, मुझे कोई किसी का नहीं चाहिए. I can cry when I'm sitting alone. Sometimes I cry, sometimes I laugh, sometimes I dance. But people तो मुझे लोग तो मुझे भी नहीं छोड़ते. But मैं बैठ नहीं सकती हूँ घर खाली ऐसे. I'm here to encourage more, add value to this panel. I wanted to add value to your life. If some way or other, छोटा सा point भी अगर मेरा एक line एक word भी काम आता है अगर आज session के बाद, I will feel more blessed because youth is listening, youth is understanding, and we are also a very sensible people because somehow, some or other way, we have touched somewhere with this sensitivity. We have experienced. So those experience, if each letter somebody will write and those thousands letter will go to ministry, they will read it. Write to CGI, na? Same-sex marriage, everybody is writing. लिखा ना लिखा कितने लोगों ने लिखा, but what is actually needed at the school level, colleges level, are we taking initiative, are we connecting to the student जो law कर रहे हैं, law colleges हैं बहुत सारे, call them as a session. Like this panel, next panel could be a law panel with you guys. You arrange that, call law students, take their opinion, their suggestion, call moms of your kids, call them, have sessions, conclude it. Rio, just you said, are we concluding? So today's session, we are concluding something. Same way, sit with the law kids. क्या लॉ है क्या नहीं वो पढ़ रहे हैं. आपको इसमें किसी हायर एडवोकेट्स के पास जाने की जरूरत ही नहीं है. होता क्या है, जिसका नाम हो जाता है, शोहरत हो जाता है, when they get everything, तो थोड़ा थोड़ा सा वो कुछ चीजों में नहीं आते हैं. बट वी नीड टू बी वेरी क्लियर कि किसको हम, कौन एंथू है काम के लिए, कौन रियल में है, कौन रियल सफरर है. वो जो दर्द जिसको होता है ना, वो इतना ऑनेस्टली खड़ा होगा ना कि अदर्स. तो किसको फील होता है, कौन कॉज में है इन्वॉल्व. तो वी कैन ब्रेनस्टॉर्म एंड देन वी कैन वर्क ऑन इट. और हर चीज पॉसिबल है. वी नीड टू मेक इट पॉसिबल, वी नीड टू फाइंड द वेज, और होगा, जरूर होगा.
Thank you, Aarti ji, for sharing your insights. Also, due to paucity of time, I think we'll be needing to conclude the session now. But just one last call, if anyone wants to say anything, the stage is open for them. They can be the speakers, they can be the participants, they can be anyone. So if anyone wants to speak, please go ahead. You can unmute, you can put it in the chat box as well. Alongside, I would, yeah, sure, Diblaji. Go ahead.
I think I want to come back to what RTG started with, which is how words can hurt. And as a person who works with words, as a person who teaches literature, I think I know that my sort of work comes from there. And I feel like, to whoever, whatever age they're listening, I really feel like, please use your words well. Please communicate with compassion. I feel like compassion is not necessarily sometimes because you don't say harsh words because you're a bad person or a good person. We need to blur those boundaries, because soon there's going to be good queer and bad queer, and nobody wants that. But compassion sometimes is a lack of imagination. And sometimes we just need to listen to other people's stories and just listen to stories so that we know that the words that we've been using have been sharp and have been hurtful. Please think about the words that you use when you're on social media, canceling people, calling out. Try to imagine other people's vulnerabilities. Try to engage with other people's vulnerabilities. See if you can express the same thing in a way that is kinder. There are things like RTG said, you don't know the other person's story. You don't know the hurt that they come from. And by actually taking accountability of the fact that all of us, if we are one person, if we talk differently, use language differently, it'll be a different world. Yeah, that's all I have to say.
After RV story, one thing is or more happened. मुझे कई बच्चों ने बताया, like after knowing RV story, you also shared the experience कि कुछ लोग क्या कर रहे थे, like kids they understood like how bullying can give a long impact, और they felt sorry. तो वो दिन का इंतजार मत करो कि हमें किसी को बाद में सॉरी कहना पड़े. रियलाइज राइट नाउ कि आप जो कर रहे हैं वो किसी के लिए कितना गलत और हार्मफुल हो सकता है कि बाद में आप सॉरी फील करो. Feel sorry right there. छोटे नहीं हो जाओगे सॉरी से.
Well said, Artiji. And my strongest takeaway from today has been the power of words, the power of kindness and compassion. I mean, I work in teacher education space and especially in social motion learning. So I've been feeling lately that my work has been incomplete without this most important piece of acceptance, if that's how we can put it. But I also realized that there is very limited understanding and a lot of biases we have to deal with. So I think we need to start from there, because I'm going to include that in my work when I talk to teachers about creating humane spaces which are inclusive for all children. This is one aspect of it and a very important piece of it. So if there is any way I can collaborate, I would be, I would really want to take this work forward, because I work with educators at school level and I feel that this needs to start really early. We are talking about an incident of grade 6. I'm sure if children are aware before that, and before that, the teachers need to be aware and normalize this conversation with students. So there is no shame attached to such a conversation amongst teachers and students, and also at home, back home. It needs to start from there. We all are equal stakeholders when it comes to the journey of a child. So that's what I have to say, because for me, it's a big learning. And I'm taking a lot from this session today. It's been great how you guys have shared your stories. But then I would really like to collaborate in any way if possible. Thank you so much.
Manisha ji, I have your number, so I will contact you right after the session, and we can talk about how we can bring this entire topic forward for other students and educators as well.
एक पेरेंट्स के लिए मुझे बोलना था, घर में जिनके बच्चे फाइंड आउट करते हैं या ओपन अप करते हैं, प्लीज सपोर्ट योर किड, क्योंकि आपकी सब पूरी दुनिया आपके लिए ना, बच्चे के लिए आप ही हो, आप ही उसकी स्ट्रेंथ हो और आप ही उसकी वीकनेस हो. तो अगर आप एक्सेप्ट करते हो तो समझ लो पूरे जहान ने कर लिया, भाड़ में की दुनिया उसके लिए. फिर दे डोंट केयर अबाउट अदर्स. तो यू बिकम स्ट्रेंथ ऑफ योर किड्स रादर थिंकिंग ऑफ कि अरे दुनिया क्या कहेगी, लोग क्या कहेंगे के चक्कर में हम अपने बच्चों की खुशियों को मार डालते हैं. तो डोंट किल योर किड्स हैप्पीनेस. तो if any parent is listening here out, so please support your child, support your kid, support as maximum as you can. अगर नहीं पता, नहीं knowledge, तो ask your child and listen, be patient. And for kids, I wanted to say, जैसे आपने इतना समय लगाया है बाहर आने के लिए, पेरेंट्स को भी समय दो समझने के लिए. और आपकी कमजोरी अगर आप उनको समझा नहीं पा रहे, मेरे आरवी ने मुझे समझाया था, उसने मुझे बताया था बहुत चीजों के बारे में, उसने एडुकेट किया था मुझे. तो मैं दोनों वे से सोचती हूँ, इसीलिए मैं कभी भी एक तरफ से नहीं सोचती. फ्रॉम द पेरेंट्स पर्सपेक्टिव, फ्रॉम चाइल्ड पर्सपेक्टिव, बच्चे को क्या चाहिए और पेरेंट को क्या चाहिए. पेरेंट को भी आपका प्यार और साथ चाहिए, वो आपको बहुत दिल से प्यार करते हैं. कभी मम्मा को पापा को हक करके बोलोगे, प्यार से समझाओगे, वो जरूर समझेंगे. छोटा छोटा पीसीस में समझाइए, छोटी छोटी बातें करिए, छोटी छोटी टॉक्स करिए, एक्सपीरियंसेस बताइए लाइफ को. दे विल रियली अंडरस्टैंड. एंड माफ करना सीखिए बेटा. पेरेंट्स होते हैं, दुनिया में कितने भी स्ट्रगल कर लीजिए, पेरेंट्स की जगह कोई नहीं दे सकता है, ना बन सकता है. तो पेरेंट्स की सपोर्ट आप बनिए, आपकी सपोर्ट पेरेंट है. तो बी पेशेंट. इसलिए it's not a easy journey, not at all as easy journey. You need to support each other. You need to support your family. Your family will become your strength. So if they accept you, you need to prove them you are the right person. You are the right. ठीक है, उसको हवा में और ज्यादा फायदा मत उठाओ. कई लोग बहुत फायदा उठा लेते हैं. पेरेंट्स ने एक्सेप्ट कर लिया, एक्स्ट्रा एडवांटेजेस, खूब पार्टी जाना है, खूब ये करना है, वो करना है, सब कुछ करो, बट बी इन लिमिट. जो पेरेंट्स को भी थोड़ा सा एडजस्ट होने में टाइम लगे.
Yes. So very well put, Aarti ji. And as a queer child who is out to their parents as well, I think it's very important as kids we also understand that as much as it was a journey for us, it's also going to be a journey for our parents. A journey of, if not acceptance, but of understanding. So it's also very important to take it slow and take it step by step. They are also trying to deal with a lot of their innate biases, which also comes in play when we talk about professors, teachers, educators, because they like most of the time the generation they come from, it wasn't that inclusive, or let's say it wasn't that informed about what queerness is. A lot of them might not even know what queerness is. So it's a one-step journey as well. And there's also like a two-way street that we need to follow: policy making and changes at the policy level, as well as like changes as like baby step levels. Also, Adi and Anvesh wants to like they have raised their hands. If you want to unmute, please go ahead. And I think after this we'll try to close the session since like it's little late. Yes, Anvesh.
Hello.
Hi,
Am I
Amish.
audible?
Anvesh, you can start and then Adi can go if that's okay.
Yeah, hi, Theo. Thank you so much for letting me go first. I just wanted to take a small moment here. I joined the session very, very late. I got stuck somewhere, but I was here for the entirety of the Q&A. And first of all, I just wanted to take this moment and just congratulate the Ramjas Curum for finally forming a space within the college. I mean, I know for a fact that the Ramjas Quirum has a history that goes back at least 5 long years. I myself have been a student of the college for 3 years, and we fought very, very hard for the creation of this space. And I mean, as a student of both Dr. Dey and Dr. Parihar, I know that the struggle that we have all collectively undergone in the college to finally have this space. So great on that, and to have your first session and such a glorious session. But just taking off from what a lot of people here said, Rajoshi said this, Debolina said this, and RP also said this, is that I think while it is very important to look at this problem at a very structural level and to address this at a very structural level by thinking of various ways to implement workshops and policies and to have bodies which sort of filter down these policies. I also think it's very important for us as spaces who receive these policies through a trickle-down effect to also give back, in forms of reports or research dockets.
Definitely.
As far as how are these policies affecting us and how far are we being able to implement this. A huge issue that I had with multiple queer spaces, especially in the Delhi University, and I say this from very, very limited knowledge because my pool is the Delhi University, I don't know how things work outside, is that there were no end of the year reports. I mean, of course, Pride Month, there would be multiple features, societies would come out, that we've had these many talks, we've had these many lectures, we've had these many panels, but there would be no effective number of figures or statistics to show, what has been the impact of having such a space in the society or in the campus. So I really think that, I think there is a collaborative magazine, a newsletter, which has been at play for the last 1 year between multiple North Campus colleges. And I think if that sort of actually goes ahead and, you can actually come forward with better research dockets, because I was going through the Pink List India docket, which released, I think, 2 days ago. And that was such a fantastic and comprehensive understanding of how, queer lives in India are being impacted at a very, very grassroots policy level. And also, I think, and just taking off from what RTG said, I mean, I think RTG, the thing is also that, I mean, as a queer child myself, who also shares a very, very deep bond with both my parents, I think for children also, that space of mourning that a lot of people say that, I understand that with parents, it comes with a space of mourning, because when you come out, you realize that what you imagine your child to be, your child is probably not that. And it takes time to come to terms with it. But I think, like you said, it's also, a child's basic expectation, to be accepted and to be understood. And sometimes that comes with a lot of impatience, because I myself have seen this from my personal experience that, in school spaces, the spaces are so closeted, and I mean, no pun intended, there's such restrictive closeted spaces, especially for outstation students in Delhi University. When we come out in that open space, that initial euphoria, that queer joy of, living a life on your own terms, and the violence of being plunged into that hookup culture, that sudden libertine space of people who are intermingling freely, which is still deeply entrenched in a certain kind of hierarchy. I mean, absolutely. I understand where a lot of us come from with that rage, but I mean, as a parent, I also understand where you come from, and you ask us to have that sort of compassion and understanding for our parents. And I hope that moving forward with the legislation which are coming along in India, we can come to a common ground of understanding. And also, I think what Dr. Day said, and I think it was Rajoshi who sort of talked about minorities calling out people in positions of power on social media. And this sort of took me back because I had the privilege of studying Giovanni's room, which Dr. They referred to in the classroom space with them. And this was a conversation which we engaged with. And of course, there's no right or wrong to this. It's a very, very gray space. But I remember intensely talking about this one incident where there was a trans lady who from Calcutta, from DPS Ruby Park, who went out there and out of years of trauma and repressed anger, they lashed out at their abusers. But beyond the point, I also saw that that there were a lot of people who had come back and who said that at that point of time we were also underage children, and we went with the flow and we are apologetic, and we would like to apologize. And it was a very complex, it was a very heated classroom space as well that day when we discussed this particular case study, because of the intense hate that a lot of these people got even after apologizing. So I think what Dr. Day also said, but I also had my disagreements with them. I think it was also that that you should find that common ground of having a comprehensive dialogue, because eventually moving forward, it's, I think, creation of spaces which sort of allow everyone to coexist and sort of better ourselves as individuals. And I think that was what I took away from that, understanding. It was, of course, it was a very, very stressful, very triggering, and very volatile classroom discussion as well. But I think that was also what they meant. And when Dr. They also said it now, I was also thinking of these conversations which we had in the classroom, and that is the reason why I wanted to just respond to what you said, because that was my initial response as well to what they said. That, but it's a form of claiming that space. But I think eventually what we're all taking away from this is just to be a little more compassionate towards each other in the long run. I'm sorry, I understand that we're both your time.
Also, thank you so much, Anvish. And also, since we were talking about, finding those touch points where we can make spaces for these conversations and to have those impacts. Anvish, we were so Reva, me and Rohin. Rohin is basically a senior lawyer who's also fighting the marriage equality case in the Supreme Court right now. We were talking about coming up with the research where we'll be doing groundwork research about how certain aspects of queerness and certain other aspects affect students' life in college spaces. We don't think right now we are at that place where we can go to schools because there's a lot of legalities in it. But we were planning to do it in do a very in-depth research in colleges in terms of queerness, and then use that research as a pretense to create a solid case in the Supreme Court, to have not centralized per se, but to have spaces for queer people. Like the Vishaka guideline was there, under which gender cells then came into action. So we wanted to do something like that for queer collectives, because as queer people right now, I feel it's very important to have those separate spaces where you feel that you can talk about such issues, be it in terms of sex, sexuality, and gender. So if you would want to collaborate on it, do ping me up or ping in the group. We can create this together. Also, Adi wanted to say something. Adi, if you're still here, please go ahead.
Yeah, hello everyone. I am Adi from Ramjas College and from Ramjas Co Collective as well. For me, it's a really, really tough journey, and also for the members of Queerum to come up and stand to create a safe space in a college campus where politics is predominant, and there are so many resistive forces trying to stop us to exist independently. Also, recently I get to know that there are so many teachers from certain ideology in Ramjas persuading students to sign a petition against same-sex marriage, and there are so many instances where I get to face heteronormativity and homophobia as well, where students get too stereotyped by their clothing and you know uh, the dressing sense. So, but at the same time, we have a huge support from our professors like Debolina and Rajendra. So thank you so much for being a huge support and to stand. Uh, and so my question is, do you think is there any interconnectedness between queer education and politics, or do you think politics plays an important role in shaping the queer affirmative institution?
Does anyone want to take that up? Or I can take that up.
Yes, Adi, there is a connection between queerness and what you said is, I think it's the tussle is between the majoritarian conservative forces who acknowledge queerness, but they want to sort of just resign to this minuscule minority space where they do not seek, equality. Like, आपको acknowledge कर दिया, आपको tolerant, we are tolerant of you, but do not seek, equal footing. So that's, it's just extreme. It is political, political. What you're saying that, some teachers are asking you to sign up some against same-sex marriage or for say this civil, common civil code and all of that. So that is basically the majoritarian conservative forces who wants, who would patronize you somehow, but at the same time wants you to just, keep you on the margin. And, so that's something that we have to be wary of, and we need to find ways and strategies to counter that. I mean, that's the whole point of solidarity and creating support groups is.
Yes, Devilina ji, you wanted to say something?
I wanted to say something else actually related to, I think, my experience. It was so good to hear Anish speak. Now, I've always thought when I'm teaching a course called Interrogating Queerness in a classroom, who is that class for? What about people who don't identify as queer and come to that classroom? How do they feel? And I feel like, for me, one of the strategies of building connections, of making queerness more connection friendly, is to critique a family, B, talk of friendship as a model for many strange relationships, and 3, to talk of time. So friendship, family, and time. I think it's important even for people who seem far away from the experience of queerness to talk, to critique family, because in India I feel like unless you critique family and familial relationships, the way that family works, who pays the cost of putting up a front of a united family, who gets alienated, who's the dark sheep, unless we talk about these things, these connections can't be built. And again, the queer classroom also ends up becoming a space for, say, someone like me who feels like, oh, I'm queer, so I can teach queerness. Not necessarily. Sometimes like on wishes, I end up learning from my students. But
yes,
also I think as a queer teacher, a person who's come to the classroom with 7 other people who are not queer, do they feel like they need to take a step back? Because I think of equality in the classroom all the time, and I don't think the classroom is an equal space. I have to begin with that confession, that there are different kinds of marginalization depending on who is in the syllabus, right? Like Raj was saying earlier, what does it mean to? So I feel like these are things that I want to sort of complicate and contextualize, and we constantly need to see where we are in the center. I think of queerness like that letter Q, like I keep saying, the O is like the center, right? It's normativity, and Q is like that little slant that is a relationship to the mainstream. And I feel like many of us now, as people in power or as queerness becoming cool, sort of occupy these positions of power. And
Definitely, yes.
when we do, we need to see who we have these conversations with, who's feeling constantly marginalized, who's the backbencher, who's not speaking. And I don't think sometimes the approach as a teacher is to say, hey, you're not speaking, why don't you speak? Like our tone, the language we use, the English inflection, all of this in an English classroom, especially, need to be thought of again and again and brought up again and again, because I don't think that I'm always making the classroom accessible. There are many contradictions that we inhabit, and it's very important to speak of these contradictions. And this may not be a direct sort of answer to this question, but I just want all of us to think about that.
Thank you so much, Deblina ji. Also, I think it's almost 7:30 now, and it was a very good long discussion. So I'll try to like conclude it now. And like thank you so much, since like as I have always been saying, that this panel may not answer most of the questions because we don't have answers to a lot of questions, and it's a work in progress. But this panel or these kind of panels raise questions that are important, raise questions that eventually turns into collaborations, as we saw today, and turns into like good initiatives that can be taken ahead. So I would like to thank all the speakers. I would also like to thank our moderator Harshita, who, despite of being at their home, did a really amazing job and managed through their family stuff and while doing the entire session. I would also like to really thank Querum Ramjes and MHQC, who are on two different sides of the like I would say lane. Uh, Ramjas being on the total right doing places where they have been having a hard time to establish a queer collective, and MHQC being one of the first colleges in DU to establish a queer collective and having different environments. And like I think that's where collaborations come in place. I would also like to thank Rethinking Economics and Care Raj Economics for supporting us with the funds and supporting us in the Zoom, the logistics of it, the YouTube, and Vinayakan, who was like representing QILC as a fellow and also rethinking economics and actually made this event happen, since we initially did not have funds to like have this event in the first place. Thank you so much for coming here. I would also like Vinayakan, if they want to like speak a few words, please go ahead.
I actually wanted to speak something because the ma'am is here. Because your RV story and your fight is something which made me help me come out to my friend for the first time in 2022. So your fight, yeah, I see you as a superhero. You are referring yourself as a mom, but I refer you as a superhero. For me, you're a superhero who did wonders, and I completely agree to the fact that. And this is my second. I mean, coming out. This is one of the other coming outs I'm doing right now, because as you might know, like I was not very visible as coordinators. One of the reasons was that I was not very openly out in many of the circles, but I felt like in your presence is the best time to come out in public. So this is the first time I'm coming out in public, and I'm very, very happy that your presence is there too. And like I'm very grateful for my wonderful friends Harshita and Priyo for helping me come here. And thank you all the academicians who were here, and you guys were presenting really in-depth content. And I am personally a student of economics and trying to work or creating a space for young economists, especially from the global south. So we have this Institute for Queer Economics being formulated with a friend from Australia. I'm trying to do that. So I've just shared the link on the comment section as well. So I deeply want to thank all the speakers and all the participants. We have 16 participants after 2.5, like around 2 hours of session. That's wonderful. Thank you so much for all the speakers on behalf of Cambridge Economics Club and Breathing Economics International. And thank you, everyone. Thank you. Namaste.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And thank you, Deblina ji, for making this happen.
Vinay, thank you so much. It's only RV doing. I just wanted to say I'm not anything. I'm no one. I'm RV's warrior, and RV want me to do that, and I'm doing it. When he was there, he was telling me, Mama, if I can come out from my depression, from this bullying I face, and then I can do something good, I wanted to influence others. So I got his camera, his mic, everything is there. So I am leading his journey. I'm living him only. So please don't forget everyone, RV, and really RV need you also. So this is only RV doing, not anybody else. Because of him, I'm here and speaking and talking and standing. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you for joining. Thank you for people who joined. Again, thank you. We'll be concluding the session. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.